Thanks everybody for being here today. I'm very happy for the turnout, and if there's some more people that trickle in, that's fine. I'm very happy to introduce Kevin from the Government of New Brunswick. He's a program administrator for the Equal Employment Opportunity Program, and he's going to be telling us more about the program today. So I'm going to pass it off to Kevin.
I'm just messing with you. Can you hear me well? Good. Okay, Sally, thank you for that introduction. I have a confession to make for everyone today. I know that obviously some people have been talking about this session because a colleague of mine, who will remain anonymous, was chatting with me yesterday afternoon and said, I understand you said you're doing a presentation for MCAF tomorrow. And I said, oh, how do you know that? So I won't out this person and say who it was, but I do know there are people around the table who have certainly shared with others about this, and that's great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to going through our time today. And I will tell you from the beginning, as Sally has already found out, I'm new to using Zoom meeting, and I have had all kinds of fun in terms of doing this wrong and that wrong. So I have no doubt that at least once in our session today, we're going to have moments of you looking at the wrong screen, me being confused, or in utter panic, I guess would be what you may experience, but hopefully it will go well today. And I want to encourage you to participate. There will be questions as we go along, and you're welcome to go ahead and unmute yourself if you'd like. You're welcome to share your cameras. You know, do whatever you'd like. There will be there's going to be actual formal questions that we'll ask. That's to make sure you're really getting it, because those are the key points in the session. Excuse me. But in addition to that too, Sally and I booked enough time so that if you have questions, we've left room for questions. Okay, I don't want this to be a group listening to me for, it won't be 90 minutes, I'll tell you that, especially if I'm just me presenting. It won't be anywhere near that, but it's going to be a good chance for us to learn about the EEO program. Okay. So my name, as Sally pointed out, is Kevin Burke. You can say it however you'd like. In French, it's Burke. In English, it is Burke. If you're at a call center in Ontario, it's pronounced Burkui. And you're welcome to just call me Kevin, please. Anything friendly will work. And I will get started by doing a bit of a screen share. Hopefully I'll share the right screen. And if I share a bunch of confidential information from GMB, that means you're in trouble. I'm in trouble, I should say. Okay. And I will tell you as we begin, there is no sound on these presentations, so you should not expect sound. So that's fair game. So as we said, today is April. I guess we're a little off on the date. I'm a little ambitious in terms of what we're. Oh, just hang on. I'm already goofing up. I can't get my. I'm already goofing up my my slides here. Good. Okay. And I'm actually going to stop my screen share because there's something kind of not right on my end. Just give me a moment, Sally. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. No worries at all. I promised you, at least I live up to my promises, right? I did tell you that there would be things that wouldn't be quite right. So. Good. Okay. Just give me sorry about that, team, but I did tell you I knew I'd. Yeah. Okay, just about ready. I'm just about ready, and there we go. I think I have it, and you should be able to see the screen again.
My apologies. And off we go. Okay. So if I'm looking at the wrong camera, I have a couple of screens in front of me. You should be able to see the screen that says EEO, Equal Employment Opportunity Program and Introduction, March 10, 2022. I think so. If you haven't, please unmute yourself and tell me, Kevin, you're sharing the wrong screen. I want to know that. I have two screens in front of me, so hopefully I'm actually looking at you. I'd like this to be as personal as possible. And the program itself, like you can see on the screen, it actually is housed within the Government of New Brunswick, but in a little shop called Finance and Treasury Board. And if you're not familiar with the word Treasury Board, that often is where the higher level human resources functions of a government happen. It's usually within Treasury Board. That is also the same with the federal government, but that is where the program is housed. And that's, of course, my introduction. I told you I am introduction. And the second little bullet point on here is English or French. We will do our session today completely in English, but I also speak French. So if you have an interest in asking me your questions in French, of course, you are welcome to. Vous avez toujours le droit de poser vos questions dans la langue de votre choix. So in English, what I just said to you is you always have the right to ask your questions and interact with me in the language that you choose. And of course, everyone would know at this point, the official languages of New Brunswick are English and French. That is why we're having that conversation. So our third little bullet point, an EEO story, is a nice little starting point of a story for us, where when I first took over the role, and we'll give you a bit of a context, when I took over EEO in 2017-18, the person who had created the program had retired 10 years ago, and they hadn't staffed the program. So it really there was nothing happening. There really wasn't a lot of hiring. There wasn't a lot of good work being done in EEO. There was no one in the program. And when I took over the program, I found out about a client who was working with GNB, and this individual had been in a non-permanent role for 8 years. You can see my fingers, right? 8 years total, non-permanent in this, casual, off for a while, non-permanent, et cetera. And the challenge that this employee had was very straightforward. The interview process for her, and that's all I will say in terms of keeping this confidential, but the interview process for her was very, very difficult because of challenges that she had. And although she'd been with GNB for a long time, and the managers had on 3 occasions had posted her job for her, hoping she would get it, she did not. So the interview process was very difficult for her, and she couldn't get through that. And when I found out about this client, of course, I realized that due to some certain, significant disability challenges, we were able to have this client be approved in the EEO program. And within 3 months of the person being registered in EEO, the client was, and this is where we'll talk about benefits of EEO, the person was appointed to a permanent position without a competition. And what normally happens, even if you're in GNB and they like you and they want to keep you, they still have to post your job so that you have to interview for it along with other people, even if they like you. Within EEO, we have the ability to bypass that entire competitive process, and we can just appoint you without a competition. So that's what happened to this client within, really, I think it was about 4 weeks after she was registered in EEO. And within 6 months' time, that client who had been casual, indeterminate, for a long time, this person within about 6 months of that appointment to permanent had bought her first new home and had her own brand new little Corolla car. So that's what EEO does. There's a lot of people in the program. I won't give you the number, but there's certainly a lot of people in the program, but certainly for some clients, it's really significant in terms of making a life-changing difference. And we've got time, so I'm going to actually tell you a couple of stories. And Sally's here for, along for the ride, and you are too. So I'll tell you about another couple this last year, both of whom they themselves would be visible minorities, and both of whom had been working non-permanently with GNB, non-permanently, and both of whom were appointed through the same thing, through what is called the Section 16 appointment to permanent without a competition. And this happened last year, both of them within about 3 months of each other. And I actually got a phone call from one of them, whom I know them now as clients, and they reached out to me to thank me, because now that they are both permanent by virtue of EEO and an EEO appointment, they are in the process of moving out of their small little apartment and buying their first home. So that's 2 very concrete examples of EEO clients who are genuine GNB people who came in through EEO, got work, and eventually through EEO, we're able to make them permanent. So that's really a big starting point for for giving you a context that I'll be the first to admit that There are lots of people who get registered in EEO that, you know, don't have that kind of success. But I will tell you, certainly for a lot of clients, there is a real tangible benefit to EEO. And I'm also happy to tell you, I also am an EEO client, and you may be able to tell that I'm probably not a visible minority, but I in fact do have an invisible disability. I have Crohn's disease and also a long history of surgeries and lots of challenges, but I also have ADHD as well, and accommodations that are required at work. So I also have my own challenges of growing up with, you know, a very unique circumstance in my health, lots of surgeries and actual camps for special needs kids because of what I had. It was called an ostomy. So I actually come to this with a fair amount of solidarity, that I do understand quite tangibly what it's like to have challenges in life. And that's the starting point. So any questions so far? And again, like I said, I don't think I can see if you put your hands up, but feel free to unmute yourself and ask me questions. If you show your cameras, I love that. I always love being able to see people's faces, especially if they're chatting. And I'm going to intentionally pause between slides because I want to give you space to ask your questions. So the overview of the presentation today is going to be fairly straightforward. We're going to go through 5 aspects of EEO, and we're going to jump over a couple of screens, and I'm sure some of you will already be familiar. Some of you may have already applied. Some of you are thinking about applying. So some of this may be a little bit of review for some. If not, that's okay too. I'm not going to read through what the 5 points are because you'll see them as we go through them. So number 1, we're going to go through that introduction piece now. So let's get moving on that. So EEO, I'm going to read the definition for you. The objective of EEO is to help create a more balanced workforce that reflects the diversity of New Brunswick by helping individuals find meaningful employment opportunities within Part 1 and Part 2 of the public service. So that's pretty straightforward, right? Most of us on the call certainly can recognize that New Brunswick as a province is certainly not all that diverse, right? And fairly most commonly settled by European and French settlers. So certainly not a very diverse place historically. But of course, that is the goal of EEO, making it more diverse, creating a more balanced workforce that reflects the diversity of the province now in 2022. And in the definition, you'll probably have spotted that it says creating meaningful employment opportunities within Part 1 and Part 2. And if you're not working in government, that is not an expression that has any familiarity to you. So I'll tell you that Part 1 of government is anything that begins with the saying, it begins with the saying Department of. So Department of Finance and Treasury Board, Department of Tourism, Heritage and Culture, Department of Energy and Resource Development. So anything that typically begins with Department of, that is Part 1 of government proper. Okay. Part 2, which is the second aspect of what EEO applies to. Part 2 is the school districts. So if you're a teacher, if you're working in a school district setting, you're an administrator, principal, you're a secretary at a school, you would still be eligible to have the benefits of the EEO program. So again, Part 1, all the what we call line departments, LINE, line departments, and Part 2, which is the school districts. So those are the 2 areas of GNB in which EEO has tangible benefit. I will tell you if you want to know, because there may be some keen people on this, there are 4 parts of GNB, Part 1, 2, 3, and 4. Part 3 is Horizon Health and Vitalité, so the health system. Part 4 are the Crown corporations. So you think of NB Liquor, Cannabis NB, the community colleges, those are all Part 4. So again, EEO only applies to Part 1 and 2. And I think at this point, you probably have an idea that, you know, what those refer to. So I'm just going to pause for a sec. I'll do this after every slide. I'm going to give us a couple of seconds just before I switch and take a drink. So as we get into EEO now, we're talking about designated groups and eligibility. What does a person have to be or have as an attribute or any particular thing in order to be registered in the EEO program? Okay. And there are 3 groups of clients that we will address today. And I will tell you before we get into any definitions or what the title of the group is, know that I am aware that these groups need to change, and I will tell you they in fact are changing. The most relevant ones that are imminently obvious is the word Aboriginal very well will become Indigenous at some point in the near future. For the group of people we would address as people who are visible minorities, it's very possible that that could change to include something that looks more generically like newcomers instead of being visible minorities. But I'll explain what the definition is in a moment. And thirdly, of course, the last group is persons with a disability. We'll actually get into the definitions. Okay, so here is a long definition, and I'm actually not going to read it for you because it's right there. So I'll just kind of shush for a second. And that's the current definition for Aboriginal person that as it applies to EEO. And as you look through this, again, as I mentioned, and I mean this very sincerely, remember that I know that these definitions need to change. We changed them 4 or 5 years ago when I started, and we know they need to be reconsidered again. So this very likely will become Indigenous instead of Aboriginal, but for now, of course, it is what it is today. Secondly, this is, of course, certainly quite relevant for a community like yourselves, where a lot of you are newcomers. And this is for this is the group called Members of the Visible Minority Group. I'll actually read it. Members of a visible minority group are persons in Canada other than Aboriginal people who are non-Caucasian. So I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to tell you that I don't know if your geography of Eastern Europe and Western Asia is where mine is, but I'll tell you, I know what that word means in terms of Caucasian. Some of you may or may not, but Caucasian just comes out of what is a mountain range that divides Eastern Europe and Western Asia, and what is called the Caucasus Mountain Range. And of course, before air travel existed, if you lived on one side of the mountain, you were likely darker in skin complexion. And if you lived on the other side of the mountain, you were likely lighter complected. So that is where that comes from. It comes from the Employment Equity Act. They still use that word in the act. But again, realize that's the definition for today, and know that I'm aware that I've talked about it already in terms of newcomers, but we'll kind of chat about this a little more. I'm going to read the second sentence. And the definition continues. Some people who are members of a visible minority group were born in Canada. Others have come here from other countries. And the second bullet says the definition does not apply to place of birth, ethnic origin, or religion. So I'm going to emphasize this so that it's really clear. And I do hope there's at least one question in the group. This definition is asking you, it's not asking you, where were you born? That's not the question. It's not about where were you born. It's not asking, were you born in Toronto, St. John, or Korea? It's asking you quite clearly whether you are, and I'm going to emphasize this, a visible minority. And I give a very tangible example in this, in that many of my friends are from India. I have a very, very sweet friend who is a Bengali and another friend who is Gujarati. And when the three, now keep in mind the numbers here, when the three of us spend time together, myself, I am a minority visibly than my two friends, my dear, dear friends from India. I'm visibly a minority when I'm in the presence of those two friends. In the same way, for my two friends who are from India, when they're, let's imagine walking on a street, let's say they're on King Street in Fredericton, it's very likely that for them, in comparison to the people around them, they very likely would be visibly a minority. So that's a very tangible example that I hope is helpful, because no doubt there's going to be at least one or two people in the group today that are saying, I don't know if I'm visible minority or not. So ultimately, it's really up to you to read the definition and decide whether you are or are not, and yes or no on that basis. And I want to tell you, of course, this is why I was giving you a bunch of the preamble kind of about the groups needing to change. It's a very tangible example today. Okay, obviously we're all aware of the really unfortunate situation in Ukraine right now, and if a Ukrainian person were to come into New Brunswick in this program, it is very likely that that person would not be a visible minority, so they would not be eligible for EEO. But all the same, this is why we're talking about creating a new group called newcomers, right? So that myself as a program coordinator and the people around me, we realize that whether you're from the Ukraine, whether you're from Ireland, whether you're from Korea or Bangladesh, there is still a significant challenge coming to a new country, culture, language, everything. There's a lot of things that change, which is probably just as important as, if not more important, than whether or not you are darker or lightly complected. So just know that I realize, as do the people around me, that having the group being a visible minority group is helpful to an extent, but we realize that in the future, very likely needs to also include people who are newcomers to Canada, but may not be visibly a minority. So I'm just going to pause there. Usually at this point, there's at least one person who has a question about this.
All good.
Oh, I heard someone. Who is that?
Yeah, it's me, Kanan here.
Kenan.
Yeah, Kanan Anadurai.
I can't see, I don't see your name on my screen, but that's okay. Welcome.
Probably.
Thank you for being brave to unmute yourself.
No.
I appreciate that immensely.
Yeah.
And finally, our last group of persons, the last client group is persons with disability. I'll read this because it is fairly significant. Persons with disabilities are individuals who have a long-term or recurring health condition that limits the kind or amount of activity that they can do in the workplace because of a physical, intellectual, sensory, or psychiatric or learning limitation. So it limits the kind of work. That's the key. There needs to be some sort of limitation, okay? The second bullet point really talks a little bit more about it. Disability has to have a significant impact on your ability to obtain and retain employment. So there needs to be, that word before was limitation, and the second down here we see impact. So it needs to be clear that there is an impact, your health or the challenges you have in your health. It needs to be clear that that impact in your life, in your work life. And I always out myself on this. I always do, because it's very clear to my colleagues and also my boss that challenges I have. Last year I was in the hospital for a month with a bunch of challenges. So that's not my normal, but it does happen. And that's not because of anything other than my health is really challenging sometimes. My boss knows that, my colleagues know that. I couldn't avoid it, it just is. So if you're someone with a disability, it needs to be clear to us that yes, your disability does impact your work. And when I approach people from all three of these client groups, I'm not looking to find reasons to exclude them. That is not what the goal of EEO is. The goal is to include people. So I'm not looking to find reasons to give people an email to say they've been declined. The goal is to include them whenever possible. I'm going to go on to the next slide in a sec, but I want to pause for a moment and just ask if anyone has questions. Okay. So now we're getting into a fun slide, which will no doubt generate a little bit of discussion, and unfortunately will generate some displeasure from the group, and I realize that already, but we'll talk about that. So in order to be eligible for EEO, you need to have either your Canadian citizenship, your permanent residency, one of the two, and you need to be living in Canada, currently living in Canada. So because of those first two, it is obvious to you now that if you have a work permit, you would not be eligible for EEO. And this is where probably some of you in the group are going to sigh and say, oh, I wasted my time coming to this session today. And if so, I apologize. And I will tell you that in last year, in around August, September, we began our research to change that so that people with work permits can be approved for EEO. It's a little bit complex to say why it hasn't happened yet, but I will tell you it's wrapped up in policy in terms of how permanent offers, and there are different ways I could explain it to you, but the details necessarily aren't as important. What is important is that as of today, if you have a work permit, you wouldn't be eligible for EEO. You'd need your Canadian citizenship or your PR, one of the two, and you need to be currently living in Canada. Any questions? Okay, it's question time. So we're going to break it up for a bit. Now, if there's anybody bold enough that wants to unmute themselves and read the question for our group, please do, because you'd get a break from my voice for a second. If I don't hear anyone, I'll read it after a couple seconds.
I can do that.
Oh, great.
I'm leaving now, so probably I can participate in this before leaving.
Okay.
So here's the question. So I used to live in Minto, New Brunswick, but I'm now living in Alberta. I'm planning on moving back to New Brunswick. Am I currently eligible for the EEO program?
Okay. So that's the question.
Yeah.
Anybody want to answer? You did a great job reading, by the way. That was excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. So the answer to this is going to be yes. Yes, of course, the person would be eligible. I will tell you, the secret is that up until last year, this was a rule I changed. When I took over the program, it used to be just New Brunswickers. If you were outside New Brunswick, you could not be registered for EEO. Last February, I changed that so that anyone who's living in Canada, remember those rules from before, right? Living in Canada with either PR or citizenship, as long as you're living in Canada now, PR and citizenship, you would be eligible. The answer to this question 1 year ago would have been no. The answer to this question today is yes. So if you got that correct, give yourself a hand. If we were in person, I would actually have treats. I would be tossing candy to people that answered the question correctly, but we're online today, so I guess it's virtual candy you get. So question 2, anybody want to read this?
I'll go for this. I'm Jyoti.
Oh, who is it?
Jyoti.
Jyoti.
Yes.
Jyoti, thank you for your courage today.
You're welcome, Kevin. The question is, I'm currently living in Bengal, India, but I'm planning on moving to New Brunswick in 2020. Am I eligible for EEO?
Okay. So in this question, it's pretty clear that this individual is capable of time travel, because they're traveling backwards in time to 2020 to come to New Brunswick. So that's puzzling, but you get the idea. Aside from the question and the number itself, it would obviously be 2022 or 23. But anybody want to wager a yes or no on this? Person is physically in India right now, but let's just say they even had their PR citizenship and they went back.
So I think that, good afternoon, Kevin. I think that the answer is no, because that person is not currently living in Canada.
Absolutely. And who is the bright person that answered so boldly?
Yeah, my name's Lynn.
Great. Well, that is
Nice to meet you.
Oh, you too. Thank you very much. I love it when people are bold and they jump in and say, I'm going to answer this question and put myself out there. The answer is yes. Is if you are not currently residing in Canada, then unfortunately you do not qualify for the program, right? You still have to be living here. And that's pretty obvious, right? This is a provincial program. We want people to be living here. It's great. We love you no matter where you're coming from. But ultimately, we want you to be living here. We want you to be, paying taxes, contributing to the community, part of the fabric of our society, right? So this is the idea. Once you get here, that's really the goal. So I hope that's helpful and clear to you. So now we're going to break up the PowerPoint a little bit. And this is where, actually, I'll pause a bit. Does anyone have any questions about those questions that we just did? Okay. Now this is where we're going to kind of break things up a little bit, because I'm going to go to the website and it's going to be a little bit touch and go with me goofing around and maybe getting my screen share incorrect. But I'm going to ask you, and if you don't mind unmuting yourself, or I don't know, can they put their hands up, Sally, in this? Can you do like a raise your hand to say yes or no things, or?
Yep.
Can you?
Yeah, they can raise their hand.
Okay.
And I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure you
the
should be able to see it,
reactions-
but I'm not sure.
Okay.
The reactions probably.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
under
sorry.
reactions for
Oh,
anybody
sorry.
that's curious.
Awesome.
It just clicks
Great.
raise
Thank
hand.
you for that.
Can
Thank
you see that somebody raised their hand?
I can't see that. So maybe
Okay.
Sally, if you can kind of be my eyes,
Sure.
which is really suitable because last week I discovered that I have to wear glasses because I'm getting old. So Sally's really going to be my eyes.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. So my question is, before we get into this, is if you wouldn't mind, feel free to put your hand up to tell me if you have already applied and or registered for EEO? So the question again is, put your hand up if you have applied and or are already approved for EEO.
We have 2 people that have their hands up.
2 out of how many in the group?
15. 3
Really?
people now.
Okay. Okay. 3. So Tosin,
Lynn.
Lynn?
Yep.
And Lynn, you answered our question. You read the question earlier, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You'll notice go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. It was you who answered the phone when we call your phone number. Is that you?
Yes, that is me.
Okay, maybe.
It's the same
Yeah,
person.
maybe I have some chance to talk with you on the phone.
Yes, you're welcome to call me afterwards. I'm
you.
the only person. My supervisor and my colleagues are really glad there's only one of me. So it will be me that you get, if you call, it will be me that you get on the phone. I'd love to hear from you. That's what I'm here for, right? And Vin, Kanan, am I saying it right? Kanan?
Yeah, you're right. Yes.
Okay, great.
I think even I'm also in touch with you. I've
Mhm.
received some emails before, and
Yeah.
even this morning I received an email. I was trying to register in EEO again, but it seems
Oh,
that it's a duplication.
you and I are gonna chat. We'll actually have a talk on the phone. We'll figure that out. That's very common. It's
Yeah.
very easy to sort out, and you and I will fix that. I'll write your name down, and we'll find a time to chat. Thank you, Kanan, for being so transparent with me. We'll do that on the phone. We'll figure that out. That's easy. There's a lot of clients, and I will tell you, I'll actually give you the number. Any given day, there's usually around 1,500 clients in the program. And if you know anything about doing program work, most times people would have about 100 clients, maybe 200 as what you call client load. So 1,500 clients for one individual is a lot, right? That's silly. And I don't have the opportunity to end up having a lot of those one-on-one conversations with everybody, obviously, right? But everybody today knows, right? You know me, you've got me on the phone, you've got me in person, so just call me if you have questions. That's what I'm here for, okay? So you're welcome to put your hands down, and now, and Tosin as well, I see your hand is up. Jyoti, I see your hand is down, and I know Jyoti because Josie answered one of the questions earlier. She was helping with the reading. And I apologize, you will notice that I will remember your names, but you'll also notice when I'm reading, sometimes I will go really slow and I will repeat things. I'm a former teacher, right? So I will repeat things and I will emphasize second time saying things. So if you see that stuff and think like, Kevin, we already got it. Why are you saying this a second time or a third time? That's what teachers do. So you'll have to bear with me if I do. So now we're moving into the application process. So for 13 of 15, this will be new. Okay. I'm going to minimize my screen and I'm going to get out of our, oh, screen sharing has stopped. That's okay. Doesn't matter. I need to switch screens anyway. I'll get you a new screen share in a moment. Okay. So we are going to, I will just do it this way. I'm starting to get a little more comfortable with this whole, screen share business. I'm really familiar with Teams. That's what we use, right? I use Teams all the time. It's not in any way, confusing for me, but this Zoom business is new. And when you're kind of older like me, you don't learn stuff all that quickly. So now you can see my screen, right? I'm on any browser, Equal Employment. Thank goodness my parents kept me in school when I wanted to quit. I can spell, right? Equal Employment Opportunity. And I can search that, but I could also put in employment equity. That will work too. A lot of the employment affirmative action, a lot of that stuff will actually redirect towards GNB and towards our searching, okay? And I should actually, oh, you can see this. We don't want that. That's going to be, I got to get this out of there because you can see this, can't you, Sally? Can you see the screen? I'm going to get that out of here completely.
Yeah, no, I can see it.
Okay, there. Sorry about that, team. I didn't realize. I'll put that at the bottom. We don't want that to, I can't see any of your faces, but there you go. Okay, so this is the actual program. It will literally be the very, well, usually it's the very first. Oh, it went through Bing. That's why. There you go. Equal Employment Opportunity. There you go. I know with Google, it's right there. Equal Employment Opportunity. It's there. First one you get with Google search right there. And on the actual homepage, and I will tell you, if you're struggling to see it too, if you're struggling with my screen share, if you press Control plus and minus, you'll be able to increase or decrease what you're seeing on screen. So again, Control plus and minus if you want to shrink or increase or decrease what you're seeing on screen. So this is the actual website itself. It talks about the program on the left. Okay, great. There's the contact information here. Yeah, and that's where you just find me. Okay, that's great. What's most important to you is on the right over here where it says do it online. If you're brand new, you're going to click on, of course, online registration, register here. That's what you would click. If you've already registered, the second one, B, says currently registered, currently or previously registered, log into your account. So if you're already registered, you're going to go through option B. And if you've forgot your username and password, which happens a lot, people forget things, I do too, you will click in here and it will actually go through a system to send you your username and password. So A, B, and C, those are your three options. We're going to actually go through the actual registration process quickly, but I'm going to go through a couple other things on this page before we leave the screen, okay? If you look down in the related links section, there is a frequently asked questions section. I don't want to go through that today because there's a lot of questions that are EEO specific that people can ask, but if you want to, take a moment and go through some of those questions. They may answer some of your questions for you. The next bullet is employment opportunities. And if you found me, you've probably already found the competitions site. This is the GNB postings site. This is where what are called open competitions for GNB are posted. And open competitions means exactly what it sounds like. They are open to everybody. They are open and then they're what are called closed. I'll show you those later on, but for now, you're just looking at the open competition, okay? That's what the job postings look like. And next, on this next bullet down, you're gonna see the list of departmental EEO coordinators. We're gonna click on that. So what this is a list of, imagine someone like me, but instead of running the program, which is what I do, I run the program proper. These individuals are EEO coordinators in a specific department. So let's look, for example, at Justine Martin. Now, Justine is the EEO coordinator at Agriculture, Aquaculture, and Fisheries. So Justine has a role to play in EEO. Every departmental coordinator has one. And here's the difference. What I do is I will help you with your registration. I help you explain the program. I help get you kind of set up in terms of how EEO works. That's my role. Basically, think of me like administrator. But if you want a specific job with a specific department, this is what the list is for. So imagine you registered for EEO and you want, let's say your background is in agriculture. Your background was trees. You're a horticulturalist. Fancy word for works with plants and shrubs. That's what you do. So what you would do if that was your background is you would reach out to Justine. The phone number is right there. There's also an email address that you could find for her. And you would actually reach out to her and you would say three things. Now, you may, if you're taking notes, this is important. You'd reach out to Justine, you'd do three things. You'd say, number one, who you are. You say you're an EEO client. I'm an EEO client. I was recently registered for EEO. Okay, great. Why are you calling me? She's going to wonder. Your second thing after who you are is why you want to work in her department. Very simple, right? And you would say, I have a bachelor's degree in and I'd really like to work with agriculture. Number two, why, right? Your name, number one, the why, number two, and number three is Justine. Can I email you my resume so that you can keep that in case there are job opportunities that would fit for me? So three things, your name, why you're interested in the department, and number three, can I send you my resume? That's it. That's what the list is for. If you want to, you make a phone call to any one of these individuals and you connect with them. And I would tell you this because I actually did this. Remember I said I was an EEO client, right? And in 2020, 2012, 2023, when I registered for EEO, I actually went through, because I have a teaching background and a counseling background, I actually spoke to the EEO coordinator at education, at post-secondary education, and also excuse me, at social development because of my counseling background. So I used this page to network, to connect with people, and eventually, guess what? I got an opportunity with one of the departments that I had networked with. They met me, I met her in person. This was pre-COVID. I met her in person. I asked if I could have 15 minutes. I did, and I met her that way. So I can't emphasize this enough. This list is really important for you as EEO clients. If you do register for the program, really make use of it and reach out to them. It's not a long conversation, 3 to 5 minutes at most, and then you send an email. But this is an important step for networking with EEO. I'm going to pause for a second in case we have any questions. I'm going to go back to our main page, but I want to allow time for questions. Okay, and the last, second last bullet here is career counseling. And this, I'm going to click on that because this is employment counseling. I'm sharing this link with you because it's important for you to know that EEO, myself and the coordinators, we are not employment counselors. So an employment counselor, for example, will help you build your resume, change your resume, write a cover letter, do interview preparation. Okay, so cover letters, resumes, and interview prep, that's exactly what employment counselors do. So if that's the questions you have and if that's what you need, that's why this link is here. You would be best to reach out to an employment counselor. It happens under GNB under what's called PETL, Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labor, PETL. And that's where you'd go if it's career counseling, et cetera, that you need. So that's the website itself, the homepage. And now I'm going to walk you very quickly through what the registration process looks like. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So this screen may or may not be, I don't know if it's going to be too big for you, I hope, or too small, I hope not. This is what you're going to get if you go to that, we'll show it, oh, sorry, I'll show it to you again here. I wish that wouldn't pop up. If you click on a register here, so imagine we're going through a pseudo registration, or pseudo, of course, is Latin, which just means fake. And this is the actual EEO registration page. And you're going to put in a username, whatever your username is. You're going to put in a password, renew it, put in an email address that you want to use, and you're going to click register. And it's going to go through a bunch of different sections. We'll walk through them, but again, we'll do this very quickly. The next screen you're going to see is called personal information. And I've done just again, this is a fake registration, but it's for an individual named Elvis Presley. I will make clear to the group that Elvis Presley is not registered in the EEO program. So again, Elvis Presley is not registered in the EEO program. This is a pseudo application. I didn't know if I needed to clarify that, but I wanted to. So this is, again, the information. This is all the personal information, where you live, country, et cetera. Okay, great. Yep. Home phone number. I think that's pretty straightforward, right? That's not complicated. And then you're going to get into, this is a tricky one. So pay attention, especially if you're coming from a different country. This is really important because everybody gets this question wrong. You're going to go to the languages question, and these are a little bit, they're not worded well, and I admit that. The first question is, of the two official languages, in which are you more competent, English or French? So I've answered this as English because Elvis was an English speaker. The next question says, of the two official languages, English and French, indicate your second official language competence by checking which best reflects your ability. So what this question is asking you is, okay, you've said you're English. So in the second question, we want to know about the other one. So I've said I'm English. Now I'm going to answer my skills in French. And Elvis didn't read, write, or speak French. So I wrote nil, none. That's what it says for Elvis. And I know this one is really confusing. Pretty well, probably 50–60% of our newcomers get this wrong. And they identify that they can speak English. Usually it's most often English. And then they put very good, very good, very good in the ratings because they think it's asking about English. It's not. It's asking about, of the two languages, which do you speak? We'll say better, one or two. And then the other one in the second question goes down here. Okay. Any questions about that? That's a really important point for many of you as clients. Which official language do you want to use? We won't go through all the questions because that would literally take us, it would take us an hour and a half to do that just in itself. Next up, we're going to do the education component. And when you're doing your education, you can see it says education at the top. You have to actually go through these kind of box by box, and everyone will ask this. And I will tell you, you cannot, as a negative, cannot upload a PDF to this system. You have to go through and put it in manually. It's a pain, I realize that. It is what it is for now. We will have a new system in probably 2 to 3 years, but for now, that's what it is. And you would go through and put in your education and your certificates, if you have any certificates. And next, we're going to go to, after the education, sorry about that, work experience. This is a big one. And what I always tell people to do under the work experience and even education, I typically have a separate window, like a computer window open, and I have my resume open. And I'm just going to copy and paste because I may not know, I may not remember off the top of my head, well, what year was I a self-employed entertainer in Hollywood, California? But if you have another window open, you can just kind of copy and paste back and forth, especially your duties of the job. That's a big one, right? Because sometimes you'll have a list of 5 or 15 duties that you had in your previous employment. We don't want you typing that all out again. So again, keep a separate window open with your resume, copy and paste it all in here, way easier. But even if you do that, it's still, most times the registration process takes around, it probably could be done in a half an hour. I would say 45 minutes to an hour in total. So that's employment, history, memberships. If you have memberships in anything, I'm a teacher. I have a membership as a teacher. Volunteer and preferences, those are important too. You volunteer, whether it's with your boys and girls clubs, with your church, synagogue, mosque, etc., whatever. Those are important things. If you want to volunteer, put them in. Preferences. Your resume will, if you click this box, it will be added to the corporate resume database. And what that means is that your resume can be accessed by a select group of people. So that means if they were looking for, they could actually search. So say you were a botanist and they were looking for botanists, they could actually go through and look for your resume. I will tell you, this is an important time to tell you, if you're someone with, you answer those, we'll get to them a little later, but we do ask a couple of questions that are health related for people with disability, who have disabilities. I want you to know that none of the confidential information about health stuff, none of that is identified when people see your resume. In fact, they can't even see what group you belong to or to which you belong. So again, you all they can see is your e-resume, your employment and stuff, but they can't even see what group you are a part of. Okay, so from a privacy perspective, we're quite on board with making sure that they only see what they need to see, and that's your, basically they're looking for your education and employment skills. Okay, so you identify if you have preferred departments, if there's a department you'd prefer to work with. I had some. And an area of work, preferred work location. Pick the area you want to work or where you'd prefer to work. And that is, when you're done, this is what it will look like. This is a resume. I can't even say it. Apparently it's a resume. We'll call it a resume from now on. It's a resume preview. This is going to show your whole resume. This is what it looks like. And this is what I can see, and this is what managers can see when your resume is complete. You see it's a name, an address, languages. Oh, okay, great. Thanks, Elvis. Yeah. Education, training courses. And then we get into work experience. Okay, great. Great. And you see at the bottom, it says Elvis's registration is under review, but it's because we never registered him in the program. But even if he was registered, it would just say that he's registered and give the date. That's it. Remember, the managers can't actually see what group you're a part of. Okay. And then the very last page, that's all you have to create your e-resume first. I probably should have said that in the beginning. Before you can technically register for EEO, you have to create the e-resume, which is what we're doing. And then once that's done, and you've created this e-resume, like we just saw, once that's done, you're going to answer the questions about the EEO specific questions. And you can kind of probably guess what those questions are. And the questions are very simple. And for most people around the table today, I would anticipate that the question is going to be either based on this definition, do you consider yourself to be an Aboriginal person, or do you consider yourself to be a member of a visible minority group? One of the two. Certainly some as well. There are questions if you're a person with a disability, but those are the 3 questions you will say yes or no to, and then you will go to the bottom and pardon all the scrolling, but you're going to go to the very bottom. You're going to say, yes, 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 I'm being honest. Kevin, I'm being honest. And you're going to click a little button that's going to say submit. So that's it. That's a lot of screenshots. I realize we just walked through 15 screenshots. That's literally every screen in the registration process. But I wanted to just give you a summary of what it will look like before we go to the email that you're going to get. So any questions about that? Oh, okay. So I hope I didn't put you to sleep with that, because that's maybe we didn't need to spend as much time, but I want you to know what you you're getting into. And then if you submit it successfully, you're going to get this email. It's going to say, thank you. It says this message confirms your application to register with EEO. Okay, great. And then it's going to tell you, you have 10 to 15 business days. It will take 10 to 15 days of processing it before you'll get an answer. And then 10 to 15 days later, hopefully, we hope, you're going to get an email saying you're approved for EEO. Congratulations. It's going to say you're approved, and it's also going to tell you that you've been approved for a period of 2 years. Okay, so valid for 2 years. Remember that EEO is valid for 2 years, and 60 days prior to your 2-year window, you're going to get an email saying, do you wish to renew? You just click yes. It's not very complicated, but 2-year window on registration, and you can renew if you wish to. It will send you, the system will send you an email. Okay. And in the welcome email, I'm kind of walking you through it, but this is really the key points. In the welcome email, it's going to tell you that you can keep your resume up to date, but it's also going to tell you that now you can apply for, I'm going to read it. It says here you can also view current, open, and in-service competitions for employment within GMB. And a little bit ago, I told you what open competitions were, right? They're for everybody. They're open to everyone. In-service competitions, or closed competitions as we call them in GMB, those are only for GMB employees and EEO candidates. So again, open for everybody, in-service for GMB only and EEO candidates. But if you keep reading, it says, please note that being accepted into the EEO program does not mean you have applied for any GMB competitions. To apply for a competition, click on the button, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to get real close to the camera and tell you this. If you see a job that you are interested in that's posted, you have to apply for it. Just being registered in EEO does not mean you're being considered for any of those posted jobs. You still have to apply. Okay, that's an important detail. People will call and ask me, I didn't get a call about a job. My first question is, did you apply for it? So if you see a job, you have to apply for it. Okay. Next bullet, keep your resume up to date. Okay, great. We've talked about some of this stuff. The next bullet is seeking assistance from employment counselors. You'll probably remember I mentioned this, right? If you need help with resumes, cover letters, and interview preparation, that's what employment counselors do. The next bullet says,
interrupt just for 1 second, Kevin.
Good. Who is it?
It's Sally.
Oh, hi, Sally.
But Tosin has his hand raised, or their hand
can't
raised.
see that. That's perfect. Go ahead, Tosin.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Kevin. If I heard you properly, Kevin, what you said is that, or the impression I get from what you said is that an EEO candidate can apply for closed competitions. Is that right? Well,
yes.
Okay. I just needed to clarify that, because I thought it was only for the people that are staff of the GNB that were eligible for that before now.
You're correct. Exactly. So because you're an EEO candidate, you're getting to see a list of jobs that are posted that everybody else in the public can't see. So you have more jobs you can apply for.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Oh, thank you for, I love it when people put their hand up. It breaks things up, right? You don't have to listen to my voice over and over again. Thank you for your question, Tosin. Tosin, are you Nigerian?
That's right.
Yeah, good guess, eh?
Yeah.
Good. I'm guessing Oluwatosin for short?
That's right.
Gotcha. Not bad for New Brunswicker, eh?
Oh, great. And I've had to speak with you before now, just to say.
Oh, good. Good. So we're in seeking assistance for employment counselors. The next bullet says research government departments and target your job search. Okay. So that's if you don't know anything about GMB, it is much more helpful to go to this website and do some research. What we don't like to see as HR, this is a secret here. What we don't want to see as HR, what I don't want to see is someone applying and there's a part where they say, what type of work are you looking for? What we don't like to see is anything with GNB, or I'll do anything with GNB. That is not helpful, right? I just want a government job. That's not helpful. What we want to see is a bit of effort so that you know, okay, I'd like to work in client service. Well, who would do client service? And we'd like to, or if you want to work in education, or you want to work in curriculum, or you want to work in botany, we actually like to see that people have gone through the GMB website and researched and figured out, there's a really weird black mark on my screen. Interesting. We want to see that people have done their research and they kind of have tried to figure out where the departments are or where their skills would best fit. And the last bullet, we've already talked about this. I kind of front load a lot of the information, but this last bullet, there's an EEO coordinator within each department. You can find the list here. So hopefully everyone remembers that, right? That's that list I showed you of all the coordinators, one in every department that you can reach out to, and you're doing 3 things. Remember I gave you the list, your name, why you're calling them, and send them your resume, 3 things. That's where that list is. So that's your welcome email. And I'm going to emphasize this as well. This is your approval letter for EEO. If you get interviewed for a job, they will often ask you, do you want to self-identify as EEO? And they ask you to provide proof in a letter. This is your letter. This email that you're looking at, this is your EEO letter. It's an email, but as you would imagine, we don't send these out through mail anymore. It's electronic. This is the proof of your EEO registration. Okay? Any questions about this so far? No? Okay. So I'm only going to show you one more little email. This is this says, you can see right on it, says confirmation of EEO registration renewal. This is if you've gotten to, and you may remember I mentioned that your registration is good for 2 years, and 60 days prior to that, you will get an email saying, do you wish to renew? If you renew, this is the email you will get. It looks really similar. It just says, congratulations, you're renewed. Okay. So I'm going to jump back into our presentation. And I think, can you still see the slide deck, Sally?
The slide deck.
Do you see, what do you see on screen right now?
I see your like
application,
your web.
You do? Okay. Isn't that funny? I'm gonna have to, I'll reshare again. Okay. So this is actually good. I'm glad we took extra time because, okay, so do you see screen 2? Do you see the application process? Is that what you see?
Sally? No, I just see you right now.
All right.
There
now try again.
Yep.
Good.
Now I see the application process.
So now we've kind of gone through that application process, and I've answered a lot of these questions already, right? We Google it, we found it, you found the link to EEO. What if I think I might already be registered? That actually came up earlier, right? With sorry, I don't remember your name, but I remember, right? If you have a duplicate, there's an email. If you think you're already registered, you can email me or call me, but you already know that because we've covered it, right? Yeah. So call me if you have questions. There. So you know you're going to get. When you submit, you have to wait 10 to 15 days, right? Remember that in the email? And then once approved, we showed you what the email looks like. Okay. So we've kind of covered a lot of this in verbal format when we were talking, but now we're just going to kind of reiterate it in writing. So it's visually in front of you. That's multimodal learning, one or more modes. So what are next steps? So you know, number one, the EEO homepage, you know where the homepage is. You know how to log in. You've already created an account. And if you've created your account, you would know how to log back into it. It's all there on the homepage. And you have to keep your resume up to date because it's possible I might or someone else might look up and find your resume. If your information isn't correct, your email has changed, your phone number has changed, They may try to call you and can't get you. So your important next step is keep your resume up to date. Have to. Number 2, applying for open competitions. We've talked about this, right? Being registered as an EEO client. Oh, I'm going to move that out of here. There we go. Being registered as an EEO candidate does not mean you have applied for a GMB job. You must still apply. So remember to apply for the jobs that you're interested in. Number 3, applying for internal competitions. And Tosin, you asked about that, right? Those are called in-service or internal competitions.
Yes,
that
I
are
did,
only visible for GMB employees and EEO candidates. Same thing. If you're interested, you still have to apply. And number 4, connecting with departments. This is the list you've already seen, I think, twice now. Remember where I've showed you, and you already know this. Huge part of the process. Reach out to EEO Departmental Coordinators to network. And the last one, working with an employment counselor. We've covered this in abundance, right? If you need help with resumes and cover letters and interviews, work with an employment counselor. Okay, so those are some next steps you can take. I'm going to pause for a moment before I go on to the next slide. Get a drink of water. Remember to put your hand up or ask me a question. Sally can interrupt me if you got a question, okay? So question 3, I'm going to read it and kind of save a little bit of time. I was recently approved for the EEO program. On the GNB website, I saw a job posting for a job I'm interested in. When will I know if I get an interview? So there's an answer to this question that if you've been paying attention, the answer will be obvious to you, but it's tricky. So does anyone want to guess on what the answer to this would be? It's okay if you don't have it because it's a little trickier. I've mentioned this a lot. Being approved for EEO does not mean you're being considered for any jobs. You must still apply to competitions that are of interest to you. Right? So there's competitions and you have to apply for them. Being an EEO doesn't mean you're being considered for those. So I will also tell you too that yes, there's the competitions, but also of course, there are other jobs that are not posted on the competitions. Sometimes they're shorter term opportunities. That's why you're going to network. And when you network with, an EEO coordinator in this or that department, they're going to know that, oh, okay, in 6 weeks or 6 months, we need to hire someone for maybe a 2-year opportunity. It's not going to be a posted competition, but that's a need they're going to have. So this is why for you that networking is really important. And I should tell you too, this is kind of a secret, but I also will send resumes around. I do this regularly. When I see a particular resume and I know that it's really, there's a skill that's in demand. Like right now, we don't have bilingual administrative assistants. So if you spoke French and English and were an administrative assistant, there's a job for you yesterday. So I would take that resume and I would send it to all of my EEO coordinators. Those jobs that are kind of hard to find, that's what I do. And I do that either through email, and sometimes when we have our monthly meeting as a team, I will actually share probably a half dozen resumes with them of people that have just come into the program. Okay, any questions? Now,
Alina had her hand raised.
Oh, please go ahead. I'll go back one. Go ahead.
Hi, I just want to know. Hi. Helena speaking. I just want to know if I apply, then how long I could know if there will be an interview opportunity, okay. Or if I'm just turned down, then will I get any notice?
Okay. Notice. So do you mean like you have applied for a job?
Yeah, I mean if I apply. Yeah, okay. If I apply, then how long it will take okay. for the, yeah, okay.
So if you apply for a job, that is a competition. If you are selected for an interview, and only if you are selected for an interview, they will contact you.
Otherwise,
sometimes that takes, sometimes it's maybe 2 weeks. Sometimes it can be about 6 weeks. That's a common window from when a job is posted And then after it's done, it's now closed because you can't apply for it anymore. Usually it's between 2 to 6, maybe 2 to 8 weeks before people will get an email saying, congratulations, you're being invited for an interview.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Helena?
Yes. Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead. Did you have another question?
Yeah, okay. Just mean if I'm not selected, so I will not be informed, like
Correct.
Contacted. Okay.
You will not be.
Okay, thank you.
You will only be contacted if you are selected for an interview.
Okay, clear.
And that's a good point too to mention. Being an EEO candidate does not get you the interview for the competition. The first thing that's required is you have to be qualified for the job. Because when they're looking through resumes, they're not looking for EEO or not EEO. What they're looking for is, do you have the minimum qualifications? That's the first thing they're looking for. So screening in, I'll say it again, screening in for an interview happens because you're qualified. Later on, we'll talk about EEO and preference, but for now, that's what you need to know.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome, Helena. Good question. I love your question. Helena Yang. So next slide. We've only got 3 or 4 more slides, so we're doing okay in terms of time. So the EEO self-identification form. I'm going to read this to you because this is exactly what will come up. It says, in the competitive process, and you probably know what that is now, competitions, right? If you are selected for an interview and wish to be granted preference in the hiring process, you must provide proof of EEO registration. Okay, so this proof, your EEO approval email, is your confirmation of registry in EEO. So I'll put this in different language. If you get invited for an interview, they're going to say, do you want to identify yourself as an EEO client? And if your answer is, yes, I do, they're going to give you a form in that email that says, fill this out, tell us that you're an EEO, but they're also going to say, prove it. Prove to me your EEO. And that is proved with your welcome email, your letter, your official letter of registration. Okay. Any questions? This is great. Rolling along. So why EEO? That's the question that I would probably say I would get fairly common. And you may be sitting there today asking, why would I apply for EEO? What's the benefit? So I'm going to list the 5 of them. We've talked about, I think, all of these, if not 2 of them we haven't. The first one is preference in the competitive process. So EEO candidates within a competitive process, so the competitions, and by this point, I think you know what competitions are, right? You're applying for a job competition. EEO clients can be granted preference. And that means that first things first, both people have to be qualified for the job. So you don't just get EEO preference because you're EEO. You have to be qualified. You have to screen in and get an interview, which means, okay, you're qualified for the job. They interview you. If you interview well and your references are good, and both candidates are deemed, they're both good candidates, EEO people can be given preference just because they're EEO. I will tell you that legally, EEO clients legally don't have to be given preference. Military veterans have to be given preference, but EEO clients, it's worded in the staffing manual, they should be given preference. And really, like I would guess the vast majority of the time, EEO clients get preference. Okay. And number 2, appointment without competition. So that we've talked about before. That was actually the very first story. Do you remember me telling you about the girl who had worked for GMB for 8 years? A bunch of stories. And that's where we take someone who is already in a job with GMB, but it's not permanent. And then we just give them a letter. The boss gives them a letter one day, it calls them in and says, here's your permanent job. No competition. You don't have to apply for your own job. There you go. That's your permanent job. So that is another huge benefit of EEO. Probably, in my opinion, the best one. It doesn't exist in government except for EEO. It's a huge perk. Number 3, networking with EEO Departmental Coordinators. You've seen this list already. I know you know what I'm talking about, right? That list of coordinators, you can network. That's a big part of this. You network for yourself. I do what I can, and we've talked about this, but you also can network for yourself and increase your chances of getting employment. Number 4, access to in-service competitions, or what we call closed competitions. That's Tosin asked that question, the clarifying question earlier. And by this point, you know this, right? They're only in-service competitions are only for GMB employees and EEO clients. And the last key benefit of EEO is funding, dollars, okay? So there are 2 ways that funding is available for EEO clients. The first one is that a department that hires you, or a hiring department, can be given up to $20,000 per year to employ you. You as a client don't see that money, but the department themselves sees that money, okay? So it's an incentive, and that's $20,000 for the department, but there's also another piece, and I'm going to flip on to the second page here, equipment purchases. Now, for some of you in the group, I'm guessing certainly probably, many in the group would identify the group of people who are visible minorities, but for people oftentimes who have disabilities, sometimes they can need special equipment to work, maybe a larger computer screen, a specific desk, software, headphones, whatever. The funding available for EEO clients is also available for equipment purchases. So part of my job is to work with clients if they need special equipment. And I'll read through a couple of these. There's a little bit too much detail in here for you, but that's okay. So the spirit of these purchases, they're a gesture of goodwill on the part of GNB to ensure that EEO clients are given every opportunity to succeed. So we're just trying to help people be successful. Part B, this is very different from a legally required accommodation, which requires medical notes and proof. I don't ask for notes, doctor's notes, consultations, none of that. This is just simply the client is an EEO client and says, I need this, Kevin, I need that. We help them get that. And there's a second part to this. There's kind of the rules of it, and I'll just sum it up very, very quickly. You just need to be registered with EEO, new to GNB within 12 months. Okay, so you're a new employee. That's the idea. And the equipment needs to help you perform the essential duties of the position. So it needs to be clear to us that what we're buying is for this specific job. Okay. And D, is there funding available? Okay. And E, is the purchase less than $2,000? So all of that summarized, that whole lengthy page, EEO will buy equipment for people who need specific equipment to work well, up to $2,000. That's really the basic of equipment purchases in EEO. So again, there's funding for salary. The department gets covered for salary up to $20,000, and then equipment, we will buy equipment for the employee up to $2,000. So that, believe it or not, folks, that is it. Questions and discussions. We have left a little bit of time, maybe not as much as I would like, but I also, again, my contact information is here. I emailed this slide to Sally and she can send it to people. And you're also able to reach out to me directly, but there's plenty of time left too. So I'm going to be quiet now and let Sally do whatever she would like or field questions, however it would be best suited for your team.
No, for sure. Thank you so much, Kevin. That was some great information, and I'm glad that some of the people here had actually gone through it before, and that this was kind of a more testing their knowledge session, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, with all that, does anybody have any questions at all?
So, hi Kevin, this is Kanan here.
Kanan.
Should I contact you? Separately after this call, after this meeting, for my queries?
If you'd like to, sure. You'll be the first in line.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you.
What would you prefer to talk with me on the telephone or on a Teams call?
Telephone, because I'm outside right now, so probably.
Okay. Are outside? You're using the computer, but you're outside?
No, I am in my mobile. So I just came out. I was in home when he connected to the call. I just came out and just reconnected in mobile because some of the informations are like very useful. So I don't want to miss anything of it.
Got it. Well, I will turn my phone on. I'm turning it on right now. and you're welcome to contact me when we've wrapped up. And I will tell you, group, by the way, I'm on vacation tomorrow, so I won't be in the office tomorrow.
Okay.
Did somebody else have a question? I don't know if they turned their camera off. If they
Kevin,
raised their-
yeah, sorry.
Dan,
Kevin, what is your working time?
I felt like making up something as a joke, like to tell you I work like 6 p.m. till 2 a.m. or something every day. But no, my working hours are every day from 8 a.m. until 4:15.
Okay.
But that's also
Thank you
really
very much.
flexible too. Like I called the client on Tuesday at 6:30, like at night. So if there are clients that just simply can't talk to me during the day, it doesn't trouble me at all to call someone in the evening if it's going to be more helpful for their schedule. My goal is to be helpful, right? And if it's easier for me to call you in the evening, I would do that. But reasonably, right? 6:30, not 2 a.m. I'm not calling you 2 in the morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Ben. Thanks, Lynn.
Any other questions for Kevin while we still have him?
Hi, Kevin Jyoti here. Just a quick thing. What happens just after I apply online? Just immediately after I apply, do I get like I think it said within 2 weeks I get an email stating whether I'm approved or not?
When you apply online, you will get an email saying your EEO application will be reviewed and you'll receive a response within 10 to 15 business days.
Right.
And then within that window, you will get an email telling you have been approved, and you'll get the exact email that I showed you, the approval email, or you'll get a nasty email from me telling you've been declined.
Okay.
Well, you won't get a nasty email, but you'd get an email just saying you're declined, which is pretty rare.
Okay.
Any other questions? And if
I have a question.
You have a question?
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Jyoti, you haven't had the opportunity yet to identify where you were from before you came here.
I'm from India. I've
Okay.
come to Canada. It's just been 3 months. We came in December last year.
Where are you from in India?
I'm from southern India, Chennai.
Chennai. Okay,
Yes.
good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, we have another hand raised. Go ahead.
Oh, I love it.
Hi, Kevin. I'm Tu. I'm from Vietnam.
Hey, Tu. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm sorry I can't turn on my camera because I'm not in a good,
You don't have to. You don't have to explain.
Yeah.
Least the older I get, the more I wish I could keep my camera off because I don't think anybody's benefiting from me having it on. But hey,
No.
Don't worry about it. Go ahead. Ask your question.
I'm glad to see you. So my question related to the funding, like when the employee will receive the funding, is it like after they get the job, right, or before?
So what happens is the funding, and this is probably way back in the beginning. So you're kind of taking the end of the presentation, which we talked about funding. Remember I said there's $20,000, there's funding available. And then the very beginning of the presentation, I remember I would have said that EEO is only for part 1 and part 2. So that's all those Department of whatever, and then the school districts. So if you're hired by either part 1 or part 2 of GNB, they're going to pay you a salary. They're going to pay you biweekly. After they pay you, EEO will then reimburse them 50% of your salary up to $20,000. So that's how the funding works. But also, and this is very important, the funding is only available for part 1 and part 2 of government. So if you're working for private sector or you're working for UNB or a nonprofit, the funding is not doesn't go in that direction.
Got it. So one more question is about, like you mentioned about the funding to buy the equipment for to do the job better. So how can we apply for that? Like that is my questions, like how can we apply for that funding to new equipment? So
Okay, so your first step is, and I went through the slide very quickly, but your first step is that you have to already be working with GNB.
Okay, get it. Yeah.
You have to be in GNB, and then you need the equipment for that job. If
Okay.
that's the case, then you would reach out to me and we would get the equipment that you need.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you too from Vietnam.
Okay. If anybody does have any questions after this session, feel free to email me and I can connect you with Kevin, or I can send around the slides that Kevin sent me.
I have a question for you, Sally.
For sure.
Is it a Garmin watch?
This is a Garmin watch, yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I
That's what I
actually
thought.
just
Yeah.
put on my white band today.
Yeah, I thought so. I have one too.
Yeah, I train for triathlon, so it helps a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anybody has any questions after this session, please feel free to email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat and I can connect you with Kevin, or I can, I will be sending around slides if Kevin sends them to me.
I did. I would have sent them to you just as we started today.
Okay.
I'm putting my email in the chat, and I'm also putting my phone number in the chat. Well, not my phone number, I should say the program's phone number. Of course, I wouldn't. It's the 1-855-825-3367, and the email. I'll give you a couple emails. That's my personal email for kevin.bork, but there's also any EEO. It doesn't matter. You can email me whatever you want. I answer them. I answer them both. So yeah, there you go.
Perfect. So those are all our contact informations. If you guys have any questions, again, you can come through me or you can contact Kevin directly. But yeah, Kevin, thank you so much for the session today.
Well,
it was very informative and very
you.
beneficial to, I know, everybody that attended.
Well, thank you. I would like to say my thanks to the group, especially in the beginning. I had a little trouble, with technology, but thank you very much, because I know, as you know from the stories, EEO can really be helpful. I certainly know of some of the shortcomings of the program, and I can tell you that we will continue to change the program, improve the program. I think in the future it will be newcomers and not visible minorities, but that's not official. That's just an idea and a possibility. So again, thank you so much for your patience today, that you were willing to take an interest. And if you do register, please feel free to call me directly. We'll talk more about how to kind of get the ball rolling, increasing the probability of getting jobs. Again, not everybody does. That is very clear. I'm very obviously, direct about that. Not everybody does, but certainly a lot of people really do benefit. Last year, we spent around $620,000 on around 50 clients. So every year there's, upwards of 550 to 600,000. And usually 45 to 50 clients who have significant positive life change from the program. So I'm happy to be here today and get to share about it.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, on that note, I hope that everyone has a great rest of your day and enjoys the sunshine outside. I heard that we're getting a storm this weekend, so enjoy the nice weather while it lasts.
Great.
But yeah. Thanks everybody for joining, and
No problem.
again, thank you, Kevin, for putting this on.
Thank you so much for the
Thanks,
presentation.
thanks, Shirley, and thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Canon, and everyone. Have a great day.